What is going on, everyone? We are just about at the end of 2019, which means it is officially time to give you guys my top 10 best movies of the year. Now, this year was a pretty deep year for movies. There were a lot of good ones. I don't think the movies at the top of my list this year, though, are as good as the ones at the top of my list last year. Nevertheless, though, we were given a lot of good movies in the year of 2019. And unfortunately, I was not able to see everything I wanted to. I missed out on Jojo Rabbit, The Lighthouse, Parasite, and a couple of others, 1917. I wish I got to see them all, but just did not have enough time. However, I got to see enough that were good, and I'm happy about it, and that's where we are with my list right now. Of course, as always, I do have honorable mentions. These were movies that I liked a lot in 2019, but they were just not good enough to make my top 10 list. So let's begin with them. Those are Ad Astra, Shazam, Dr. Sleep, Richard Jewell, and Triple Frontier. I really enjoyed all those movies, just not good enough to make my top 10. So without further ado, let's get started with
number 10.
I'm probably just as surprised as you guys are with this number 10 entry. It's Cold Pursuit. Liam Neeson in these types of films are always an enjoyment to see. He thrives in roles like these. Cold Pursuit is like Taken with John Wick mixed into it. The action is precise, it's well filmed, exciting, and a lot of fun. It's a pretty funny movie as well, and it's done in a creative way. You would not expect it to go in this route, and it does. As I said, Liam Neeson, I love seeing the guy on the screen, and he is great in this movie. People will say to me, you can't put Cold Pursuit in your top 10. Well, buddy, I just did.
Number 9.
I feel like for audiences, this movie was not as popular, but for critics, they loved it. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is at number 9. This was a movie that touched my heart so much. It's loosely based on a true story with Fred Rogers and one of his close friends, and that was my only problem with it, was that it was not all that accurate to the true life story, but it didn't really matter that much for me. I was so emotionally riveted by A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and part of that is due to Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers. He was mesmerizing as this character, and I think he's absolutely Oscar-worthy. He probably won't get nominated, unfortunately, but A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is truly a beautiful movie.
Number 8.
Sometimes racing movies can be my thing. Ford v Ferrari is at the number 8 slot. Matt Damon and Christian Bale as the two leads in this film. They are perfect casting choices for this film. Their chemistry is spot on. I could not imagine anyone else playing these two characters in this film. Ford v Ferrari is led by two phenomenal actors, and these guys carry this movie on their shoulders. They make it a great film. This is also a very fun movie with a funny script. It's well written, well directed by James Mangold. And you can't talk about Ford v Ferrari without mentioning the racing scenes. They're exhilarating, exactly how I want them to be, and the final hour of this movie hits me right here.
Number 7.
Marriage Story is my 7th favorite movie of the year, and that's because of Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson's performances. These two gave, I think, the two best performances of the year. I've already talked about a couple of performances that I love this year, but these two, I think, are hands down the best two performances of the year. The dialogue in this movie is so realistic. If this were real life, this is what the dialogue would be like. So you have two insanely good performances with an incredible script. Throw that together with a very relatable movie that, once again, it hit me deep down here. This movie reminded me so much of my life as well. It's one of those films that you can relate to so much, and not many films do that for myself, but this is one of those.
Number 6.
I might be a bit biased because one of my favorite actors is in this movie, but Spider-Man Far From Home was one heck of a good time. Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio in this movie. I cannot say anything else. Jake Gyllenhaal in the MCU, it's everything I wanted. He was so good as Mysterio in this film. Tom Holland reprising his role as Peter Parker in Far From Home. Such a great casting choice, and he proves that he is a worthy Peter Parker once again in this film. This is one of those movies that I never wanted to end. I sat in the theater, enjoyed every single second of it. It was such a fun time. It's one of the best MCU movies to date. It has a great finale. In my opinion, Far From Home is better than that of Spider-Man Homecoming. That's just me.
Number 5.
At the start of this year, I never would have guessed this movie would have been at the top 5 of my list by the end of the year. But Hobbs Shaw is here at number 5. And yes, I'm as shocked as you are, but The Rock and Jason Statham, as a duo, these two have ridiculous chemistry. And on the screen, they are hilarious with each other. They work so well together. And having them at the forefront of a movie that is ridiculous, is very over the top, they make it so much more fun. And the action in this movie as well, with Idris Elba as the villain, I just had such a great time watching this movie in the theater. It's not a perfect movie, it's a pretty stupid movie, but this is one of those movies I look back on and say, are there really that many movies I had more fun with than Hobbs Shaw? No, there aren't. The action is excellent, and the sound design works perfectly with this movie. Hobbs Shaw is one heck of a great time.
Number 4.
This is a film that a lot of people did not like this year, but I loved it. It Chapter 2 is at number 4, and I'm surprised that a lot of people thought this movie was actually bad. I thought the complete opposite. It's led with a great cast starring Bill Hader, Jessica Chastain, James McAvoy, and Bill Skarsgård, who once again kills it as Pennywise. This cast is extremely strong, one of the best casts of the entire year, and they elevate this movie beyond anything else it could have been. Without them, this movie would not have been nearly as good. Like the first film, there are chilling and scary moments in It Chapter 2, regardless if this movie is not as good as the first one. And the mystery behind this film, I had a ton of fun unraveling the mystery in this movie. Yeah, the middle of the movie is problematic, and there are some things that are not as good as the first one. The first one is a fantastic movie, and I do like the first one better. But It Chapter 2, I thought, was a very good movie and is an underrated movie in this year.
Number 3.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that have this as their favorite film of the year. For me, it's number 3. Avengers Endgame is a really great climax to Phase 3 of the MCU. This was a movie that I had so much hype for, and it's one of the few films this year that I saw that lived up to the hype. I walked out very happy and could not be more satisfied than I was after watching this movie. It was very epic. And for a final Avengers movie for a long time, it definitely makes sense. Why would you not go all out and make this the most epic movie as possible? Unlike Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, this movie did everything it could to wrap up a ton of storylines. So, looking at it from an epic standpoint, it's about as epic as can be. And Avengers Endgame barely has any problems. I think this movie is really great. It's not as good as Avengers Infinity War, but still, I love Avengers Endgame.
Number 2.
Jordan Peele is such a talented man, especially as a director. Us, I thought, was better than Get Out from 2017, and that's partly due to the cast in this film, led by Lupita Nyong'o, who I thought gave one of the greatest performances of this year. She had to play more than just one part, 2 in fact, as well as the other main cast members of this movie, and all of them were so good in this film. I did not expect this movie to be as good as it was, but it was chilling, eerie. It haunts my mind to this day. Thinking about this movie really affects me on a certain level. This is one of those films that I will always remember because of how well put together it was. It's another film that I was unable to predict. You don't know where it's going to go, and you keep guessing. You have so many different theories going into this movie, and I feel like this is also one of those movies this year that definitely could get a sequel down the road. Will it? I hope so. Probably not. But still, there is a lot here going on with the background of this film and the story behind it that it could absolutely get a sequel in the future. Plus, the twist at the very end of this movie caught me off guard. It's my favorite twist of the entire year.
Number 1.
So what's number 1 for me of 2019? This was a movie that I did not find as strong as last year's top entries, but still, it is, in my opinion, the best movie of the year for at least myself. My number 1 movie of 2019 is Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix, directed by Todd Phillips, who Wow, I have no idea where that came from, Todd Phillips. He did an amazing job directing this movie because this guy, he's known for comedies, and to do a complete 180 for yourself and to direct a movie like Joker, that is sensational. Joaquin Phoenix, a lot of people said that he gave the best performance this year as Arthur Fleck / the Joker, and yes, he was really good in this movie. He's definitely up there for one of my top performances of the year, right behind Heath Ledger for my favorite Joker, and he's just so great in this movie. Definitely a movie that revolves solely around him. This is a character study at its best. A film that, once again, I found as extremely unpredictable. I wanted to see where it was going to go next. My eyes never left the screen. You can't ignore the R rating. This movie does everything it can with its freedom from the R rating, and I love that aspect of the film and the grittiness that came with it. And I also liked how, despite the fact that he is the villain of this movie, that we can empathize with his character and we see exactly where he's coming from. A lot of villains, you're like, well, you're one-dimensional. But with Arthur Fleck in this movie, he's a character that we can get behind. We understand his motivations, and he has valid reasons to do what he's doing in this movie. He's a character that I like a lot, and he's really well developed. Joker is Todd Phillips' best movie. He should be very proud, as should Joaquin Phoenix with this performance. Joker is my favorite movie of 2019. And there you guys have it. Those are my top 10 best movies of 2019. As I said, this was a pretty good year for movies. I don't feel like the top 10 of this year was as strong as my top 10 of last year. Nevertheless, I thought this was a very good year for movies and had a pretty deep lineup, if you ask me. For those of you who also have your top 10 favorite movies of the year, be sure to let me down below in the comment section what those are. Next up, I'm doing my top 10 worst movies of the year, and yes, there were some movies that I really did not like, so I can't wait to do that tomorrow for you guys. If you're new to my channel, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.